Hey everyone, welcome back. We are going to start working through the financial statements. So there are 4 financial statements that are required for publicly traded companies. So if you're a company that's owned by shareholders and your stock is traded on a public exchange, so it's a stock that anyone could go out and purchase at any point in time, you are required to provide these 4 financial statements to the government and to have them available to users. So those are the people who are required to use these financial statements, but most all companies are going to utilize all of these statements in order to have a good understanding of their financial position. They're going to be requested to provide these statements to people outside of their company as well. So even if you just have a small business, a mom and pop business, you're going to have to give these financials to somebody, a bank, investors, creditors, someone. So these are just good pieces of information to be familiar with and know what goes on those statements and what they mean. And obviously we're going to be working with these statements way more in depth throughout the semester, but we will work with all of them the remaining semester. So first one we're going to do is an income statement. And so on your income statement, you're going to see revenues, you're going to see expenses, and we want our revenue to be more than our expenses. So remember, when we're talking about a company, what's their revenue? You know, I'm the gas station that's selling gas to my customers. So I need to sell it to them at more than my cost of providing it. So whatever it costs me to buy, plus have the pumps, employees, things like that. I want to be bringing in more in revenue than what I've spent on expenses. So if revenues are greater than expenses, I have what's called net income. If if the opposite is that happening, if we have more expenses than what we have in revenues, then we have a net loss, and that's going to be a problem. So income statements are reported for a period of time. Let's take a look at what one would look like. So most companies report an income statement for the entire year, but they're going to do it for much shorter periods as well. They're going to do it weekly, monthly, quarterly, and at a minimum, they will do it for the whole year. But most companies will do at least monthly. Okay, so here's what an income statement looks like. Please note up at the top, all of our financial statements have to have headings. People need to know what they're looking at. First line, it has to be the name of the company. Second line needs to be the name of the statement. Third line needs to be the time period that the statement is reporting for. So Eagle Soccer Academy, this is their income statement. They're reporting their activity for the month that ended on December 31st. So it's just 1 month of activity. How much did they bring in revenue? What were their expenses? So revenues, they're doing the heading revenues. Underneath that, they list all the revenue that they have. They just have the one source of revenue, a service revenue. So they're providing either soccer space or soccer lessons for kids, clubs, whatever. So they brought in $7,200 in revenue. Their expenses, oops, let me go back. They had rent expense, supply expense, salary expense, utilities expense, interest, and other expenses. So they did the heading expenses. Underneath it, they listed all the different types of expenses that they had. And whenever you have a list of items on a financial statement, you're going to have to do a total of that list. So they've got total expenses, and then they add up everything that they have above it. So rent expense all the way through other expense, if you add that all up, they've got $6,000 in expenses. You don't need to list the expenses in any particular order. Same thing with revenue if you had multiple sources of revenue. It doesn't need to be in any particular order at this point in time. So last step, final step with the income statement, we need to show, do we have a net income or do we have a net loss? So you're going to take your revenue, which is $7,200 in this case, subtract your expenses of $6,000, and that equals your net income. So revenue minus expenses equals your net income. If it's a positive number, you would say it's a net loss if you get a negative number. So they have income of $1,200 for the month of December. That is an income statement. In class and in your practice homework, we would go over exercise 1-6. Obviously, you're going to be asked to do an income statement in your homework as well. So that's an income statement, and our next video will be on the statement of stockholder equity.